Author's Press.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Author's Press. Today we have a very special guest, Asa D. Dunnington, and we're going to be talking about his book called Selectively, Lawless. Hey, Asa, thank you so much for joining us. Good morning. How's your day going?
Good morning. Fine. And yours?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I will say I had to have skin cancer surgery this morning.
You seem very chipper for someone. That's awesome. You seem like you bounced back. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm retired from Federal Express. I'm 84 years old and married. I've had an interesting life. I've written for daily newspapers. I had a career at Mattel Toys. I was a lead advance man for the Vice President of the United States, and I had a career at FedEx.
Wow.
Yeah.
You did all that in one lifetime.
Right. Also, I umpired fast pitch softball for 20 years.
Wow. Damn, you've done it all. And now you're an author. Look at that.
Yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do after I retired from FedEx.
Yeah.
And here I've written 2 books.
Yeah. So what inspired you to write Selectively Lawless?
It's the true story of my wife's uncle, actually. I tell everybody he's my uncle. We had good chemistry. He was kind of the black sheep of his family. And when I first met him, he was 65 years old. And I think he wanted somebody to write his life story, and he knew that I had a newspaper background.
Yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about the writing process for the book?
The interesting thing about Selectively Lawless is after I interviewed him, I knew I couldn't write his story until he passed away, because he killed 4 people. And once I found out that he had passed, he died in 1993.
Yeah.
But I didn't find out until just a few years ago. Anyway, once I found out he had passed, it was like the dam broke. In 10 days, I wrote 12,000 words. And then I engaged the services of a ghostwriter to assist me. And between the 2 of us, we expanded the word count to over 60,000.
Yeah. Do you feel like writing this book helped you process that? I feel like that's so much like information to find out about someone and then have to just repress it. Do you feel like writing this kind of helped you process that situation?
Well, the interesting thing is that I remembered every detail.
Yeah.
Emmett wouldn't let me record our conversations or even take notes. So I had to just keep it up.
Leave it up in there.
In between my ears until I could use it.
Wow. So how did you research the historical background of the story?
Well, I did a lot of interviewing, and also my ghostwriter, Bill Maddox, and I both did a lot of interviewing. I tell everybody I had an affinity to the outlaw way of life because on my mother's side of the family, I had two aunts and two uncles that were affiliated with Al Capone.
Oh, wow. Oh, from a long lineage then. Yeah,
Yeah,
I once went out with like a friend of mine had one of their friends, their great grandfather was like a serial killer, like a renowned serial killer too. So it's interesting how how your history just kind of comes up in weird ways. But yeah.
yeah.
um
My two uncles either made booze or carried booze for Capone, and my aunts were married to henchmen of his.
wow. Well, did you face any challenges while writing this book? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I think most of my wife's family wanted the story to be told. Everybody knew a little bit about Emmett's life, but there were a lot of things that I revealed in the book that they learned for the first time.
Yeah.
Well, the first person that he killed um, was a park ranger in Oklahoma. Emmett and his associate Boots Calicott were dynamiting a pond. When you make whiskey, you got to have clear water. So they dynamite the pond to kill all the fish.
Hmm.
And as they were doing that, a park ranger came upon them and they killed that young man. He was a young man and father of two. And that was the one event in Emmett's life that he really regretted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, can you share any like maybe interesting anecdotes or experiences that you had while writing this book, whether they were good or bad?
Well, personally, I didn't. I think the thing that fascinated me about Emmett was he was the son of a lay minister
Yeah.
and a sharecropper. And he had a great deal of respect for his parents. But during Prohibition, um, he found a way to make a living. Um, for example, in Oklahoma, where he lived,
Mhm.
he was surrounded by Comanche Indians. He paid those Indians $1 a piece to vote for his sheriff. He controlled the local law for over 8 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Have you read the book?
I have not, no.
Okay. In 1966, Emmett got a call from Benny Binion, who owned the Horseshoe Club in Las Vegas.
Hmm.
He and Benny were old buddies. And Benny told him that the mob was getting ready to open a casino in Las Vegas, Caesar's Palace.
Hmm.
And Benny said, I think we can rip it off. So Emmett checked into Caesar's Palace the week it opened. And when he gambled, he told me he never played poker to gamble. He played to win. He wore trifocal glasses and marked cards with something he put in his hair.
Hmm.
First night there, he won 25,000. He was there for 2 weeks. They knew they were getting ripped off, but they didn't know how. In 2 weeks, he had accumulated $500,000. He knew they wouldn't let him leave with the money, but he got the money out of there
Yeah.
and he split it with Benny Binion.
Mm. Yeah.
I think that would make a great movie scene.
Yeah. That's pretty amazing, actually. All that in 2 weeks. Wow.
Yeah.
So what message or theme do you hope that readers will take away from reading this book?
Emmett was a unique personality. I think the readers that are interested in the Prohibition era
Yeah.
outlaws and just outlaws in general, I think, and the history of that period of time.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Um, will enjoy the book and they'll be fascinated by how clever Emmett was in accomplishing what he did.
So for you, it's more about the ambition, maybe like the aspirations that Emmett had, just like that drive, even though it wasn't always used for the best. Would you say that that's kind of like the theme that you?
His wife,
No, no, no. Like his like obviously he was pretty like an ambitious person, right? He
oh
wasn't used for
yes,
the best
yeah.
for the best
For
things, but
example, his outlaw um, lifestyle began when he was 14 years old. He walked off a cotton field in Texas and told his brother and sister he was not picking cotton again.
Mhm.
Um, he said that he was going to make his way without following the family tradition.
Yeah,
He learned to play cards from a cousin that was nearby in Texas, and in 18 months accumulated $18,000 and a brand new Buick Roadster. And when his family saw him again, that was what he had. And that
yeah.
bankrolled his start in the moonshine business.
And how did you develop these characters in the story? I know that they were based on real people, but was anything kind of you said a lot of these things you kind of just you couldn't write down, you couldn't record. So do you feel like anything was pure was fictional at all?
I had heard family stories about him before I met him. And when I met him in 1969, he owned a motel in Cuesta, New Mexico. That's in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains above Albuquerque. And he invited my family there to vacation. I spent that week with Emmett, and we had good chemistry. Some people think I'm Bart Badass because I got along with him so well.
Yeah.
Excuse the language, but that's what I've been told.
That's really funny. Well, what has been the most rewarding part of writing this book for you?
Again, I had just retired from Federal Express,
Yeah.
and I've always had a way with words. Um, like I said, I was a sports writer in Southern California
Yeah.
for a daily newspaper. In high school, I was the sports editor. So I've always had a knack for writing.
Yeah.
And Emmett's life was so interesting that I couldn't wait to write the story.
And so you feel like I mean, I guess telling a story that would have never been told, right? Like giving life to, a passing character.
Emmett did so many things that were just one of a kind.
Yeah.
To give you an example, he met this young man in Cache, Oklahoma, where he was from, and this young man was a pool hustler.
Hmm.
And it took this young man on the road in southwest Oklahoma, and they hit every pool hall that this kid wanted to play the game in, and they would hustle the local pool players.
Mm.
Anyway, it seems like the young man had been holding back some money on Emmett. Emmett
Mhm.
ran into him one day after their venture had ended, and Emmett was on horseback in downtown Cache, and he asked the young man for the money, and the guy gave him, you know, excuses for why he
Yeah.
didn't have it. So the kid ran into the nearby bank, I guess, to make Emmett think that he was going after the money.
Mhm.
Emmett was on horseback, rode into that bank, and threw a rope over the kid and dragged him out by his heels. And he got his money.
Mm.
And then he later owned that bank.
Wow.
So
That,
those are the kinds of anecdotes that people would be, find hard to believe.
yeah, no, that is actually pretty unique. You can't
Yeah,
even, like you can't even write that. I don't know. You can't even make that up for like a movie. Like that's so specific.
yeah.
Well, are there any specific authors or books that influence your writing style?
Well, I humbly cannot and offer the fact that the Hollywood Book Review
Mhm.
compared my writing style to Larry McMurtry. Are you familiar with him?
I'm not, unfortunately.
Uh, Lonesome Dove. Have you seen that movie?
What's it called?
Lonesome Dove.
No, I have not.
Anyway, that Larry McMurtry wrote that.
Hmm.
He also compared me to Zane Grey. Zane Grey was a prolific Western writer of the 40s and 50s. So I read everything that Zane Grey ever wrote.
Wow.
So I was very honored to be compared to him.
Awesome. Well, what advice would you give to aspiring writers who are just starting their writing journey?
Um, write on a regular schedule. Spend so many hours a day writing.
Hmm.
And don't be afraid to open your life to everybody if that's what you're writing about.
Well, do you have any upcoming projects or books that you're currently working on?
Well, I told you I was a softball umpire.
Hmm.
I have a friend in Oklahoma who I umpired with, who is self-employed and had his hobby was to visit former Major League Baseball players to get their autographs.
Wow.
And he's got a story for every autograph.
Yeah, I bet.
He's got over 270 such incidents, and
Wow.
I've been trying to get him to share these stories with me. I said, I'll write the book, you can co-write it,
Yeah.
and it would be a bestseller.
Yeah.
Baseball
Wow.
fans would go nuts over it.
Yeah, for how to. That's so interesting. I wonder, like, did he work in that industry? Did he work in
Well, he's a master plumber, self-employed, so he
okay.
could take time off whenever he wanted to.
Yeah, but like that is so interesting to me because like the fact that he wasn't even working, within the MLB, but then he would still find ways to approach these baseball players. That
Yeah,
I'm very intrigued by that. I would love to hear
that,
how
that's
he
why the stories are so fascinating.
yeah.
None of them are the same.
Wow. That's amazing.
And
Very,
it's interesting. I've heard a lot of his stories. And it's interesting the reaction that the ball players have.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, are they usually like a bit off, like put off by someone approaching them and just, or are they kind of, I mean, I guess I have to hear the stories because in my mind, I'm picturing some random person just coming up and saying, "Hey, sign my autograph." And they're like, "How did you get in here?" I don't know if that's the case. Or if it is, that's very cool.
well, from what I've heard from him, most of them are flattered
Yeah.
that it's a project of his. He's not a reporter.
Yeah. He's just
He's a
passionate.
fan.
Yeah. Well, as an author, I guess like what do you think is the most important quality or skill for a writer to have? Because obviously, this guy doesn't even know that he doesn't see it in the terms of, oh, this could be a book, but you do.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
well, what do you think is like the most important skill for a writer to have?
Well, um, certainly to be able to write a descriptive phrase. Um, also, um, to be able to write colorful dialogue.
Hmm.
That's not always easy. You have to spend a little time in writing dialogue to make it real. But the main thing is to be motivated to write the story.
And you said, I mean, so it was motivation, but you also said, like consistency or putting in the time in your schedule, right, to write every day.
Right.
So it's a mixture of having that passion, like be passionate about the story that you're telling, but also don't rely solely on passion, maybe, right? Like have the ability to say, I need to sit down and write today. Like it's
Exactly. Yeah, it's part of your daily schedule.
yeah, that's good. Hmm. Wow. Well, thank you so much. I
Oh,
think
you're
it's
welcome.
been super insightful. I mean, just kind of like my last couple questions are, for everyone listening, we would love to read Selectively Lawless. So can you please tell us where we can purchase your book?
Well, I have a website, asadunnington.com.
Okay.
Amazon is another one, Barnes and Noble. And by the way, I got 5 stars on Amazon from my book and also from Barnes and Noble.
Wow. That's a big congrats.
Yeah.
Amazing. So just so the audience knows, so you have, is it asadunnington.com or is it just your
No,
first
it's
name?
asadunnington.com.
That's Asa Dunnington, ASADUNNINGTON.com. You can,
ASA is ASA, Dunnington is DUNNINGTON.
yeah, .com.
Right.
Yeah. So we can purchase your book there, Selectively Lawless, also on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and Altus Press too, I believe, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. And how has been your experience working with Altus Press?
Um, it's been a very good experience. The people I work with there are enthused about my book, are willing to spend the time to help me promote it.
Mm-hmm.
And they have the skill set there in editing and making suggestions about promoting it. And so it's been a good match.
Hmm. Well, I'm sure they're gonna be glad to hear that.
I
um,
hope so.
yeah. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I mean, the book itself sounds very, very, very like interesting. Maybe even a little bit like I don't want to say inspiring, but definitely like what an interesting character, you know. A lot of characteristics in there. And
And can I mention one thing?
yeah.
We're trying to get it made into a movie.
Hmm.
Robert De Niro just released a movie recently called Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes.
And my book is considered a sequel to Killers of the Flower Moon because my uncle met William Hale, who is the principal character in Killers of the Flower Moon. They met in Leavenworth Prison,
Wow.
and my uncle actually helped Hale get 7 prisoners out of Leavenworth, helped them escape.
Wow. Well, that'd be interesting. I mean, yeah, it's not. Have you like started the process of trying to find like a director or someone who could?
um, Hollywood is difficult to penetrate,
Yeah.
but I have talked to uh, producers. Um, I think that realization will be come to pass. Um, it just takes time.
Yeah.
Well, Killers of the Flower Moon, though, was a blessing to me because it opened that genre in Hollywood.
Yeah. And especially, well, hey, if you find the right producer and someone who can bring the story to life, I think you should. That would be a great next project for you.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I look forward to seeing it on the big screen one day.
Well, thank you. Hey,
But yeah,
it's been a pleasure. I appreciate your time.
no, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, for those listening, this was Nick with Authors Press. We were talking about Asa D. Dunnington's book, Selectively Lawless. It's a fascinating read. And yeah, you can find that on Amazon, where it has 5 stars, Barnes and Noble, where it has 5 stars, and on Authors Press, as well as his website, asadunnington.com. Thank you so much, Asa. It was a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, best of luck with your future endeavors.
Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Authors Press.